The Financial Times reports on a strain between Ukraine and European allies as Ukrainian officials grow frustrated with how long accession into the EU is taking. On the battlefront, Russia is trying to get a stronghold in Kostyantynivka in the eastern Donetsk region that is heavily fortified and defended currently by Ukrainian forces. And Zelensky and Robert Fico, the Prime Minister of Slovakia, hold a telephone call, and Zelensky invites him to visit Kyiv ahead of his going to Moscow, Russia, for the Victory Day parade on May 9th. I'm Sophia Marie. Let's get into news of the Russian East European region. Hey, it's Sophia. I'm a graduate of Georgetown's SFS and Oxford. Make sure to like and follow. I do these updates daily. Okay, so our main story, the Financial Times reported on this strain between Kyiv and its European allies. So apparently Zelensky and high-level Ukrainian officials have been using these European summits and meetings with EU and US counterparts to press for fast track for EU membership for Ukraine, causing this strain with European officials. So 7 officials present in these European talks with Ukraine said that high-level Ukrainian officials are using these EU and US meetings to criticize the European Commission's handling of enlargement and to press for faster accession timelines. So to give some history, Ukraine achieved candidate status for the EU in June of 2022, months after Russia began its full-scale invasion in February of 2022. And then Zelensky has demanded that 2027 be the year for accession. But for European officials, this is just way too difficult. Apparently at the summit in Cyprus recently we reported on, EU officials sought to curb Zelensky's expectations of this fast-tracking of EU accession, with one official telling the FT, quote, he had to hear some harsh truths, and it, quote, won't be as easy as he thinks. Now, while EU diplomats expressed empathy they have for Zelensky and obviously Ukrainian officials having to undergo over 4 years of war with Russia, they relayed to the FT that accession to the EU should be merit-based and that Europe really is the strongest ally Ukraine has, and so it shouldn't be so critical towards it. One official even told the FT, quote, we are the only friends he has, so he might be better off keeping his mouth shut. So yeah, this was according to 7 European officials talking to the FT, but I think it's quite representative of the overarching sentiment European allies have towards Zelensky and feeling that EU accession can't be fast-tracked and has to be really merit-based, but interesting thing from them. Now, on the battlefront, according to Ukraine's top army official, Russian troops are intensifying their attacks on the city of Kostyantynivka in the Donetsk region, a city part of Ukraine's fortress belt and well-defended, solidified by the Ukrainian military. So Ukraine's army chief posted to Telegram, quote, we are repelling the Russian occupiers' persistent attempts to gain a foothold in the outskirts of this city using infiltration tactics. Counter-sabotage measures are going on in the city. Okay, now in other news, Prime Minister of Slovakia Robert Fico and President Zelensky had a phone call today where Zelensky invited Fico to visit Kyiv, Ukraine, ahead of his visiting Moscow, Russia, for the Victory Day parade, which will take place May 9th. Now, this is quite significant because we've talked a lot before about how Slovakia and Hungary were really mad at Ukraine for not immediately restarting operations when the Druzhba pipeline was hit in late January. Slovakia and Hungary are the 2 EU member states still heavily reliant upon Russian energy, and Robert Fico is kind of seen as like straddling the EU side and also having a relatively good relationship with President Putin. So, for example, Robert Fico was the first EU leader to visit Moscow in the aftermath of the full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Last year, he also attended the Victory Day parade on May 9th. Now, Zelensky wrote on social media, stressing the need for Ukraine and Slovakia to have a good working relationship, saying it is, quote, important to hear that Slovakia supports Ukraine's membership in the European Union and is ready to share its experience of joining the EU. Now, after this phone call, Robert Fico also posted on Facebook, saying, quote, although we have differing views on some issues, we share a common interest in good and friendly relations between Slovakia and Ukraine. I confirm that Slovakia supports Ukraine's aspirations to join the EU, as Slovakia wishes for Ukraine, our neighbor, to be a stable and democratic country. Now, lastly, in Central Asia and the South Caucasus, just recently, the media watchdog Reporters Without Borders published its report on press freedom, its annual report. So besides Armenia, All states in Central Asia and the South Caucasus ranked in the bottom quartile of the ranking just published. Armenia still underwent, however, severe deterioration in press freedom. Last year it was ranked 34th out of 180 countries surveyed. Now it's ranked 50th. Georgia ranked 135th in this ranking, undergoing a 21-point decline since last year. Now, out of the 180 countries analyzed, Azerbaijan and Turkmenistan were deemed the worst of the worst, with Azerbaijan coming at 171st and Turkmenistan at 173rd. That's it for news today. I hope you have an amazing weekend. Make sure to like and follow. I'll be back tomorrow.